Thank you. Okay, my name's Seth Berman. It's my first time here at Smalltalks down here, and so favorable first impression, that's for sure. I'm getting to meet some new folks, and it's been an exciting conference so far, so I'm looking forward to the rest of the week. So I'm from Instantiations, and I'm here to talk to you today about some of the new work we're doing with the editor. So basically, just to give you a little history, last year we kind of revamped our editor. We're using an open source project called Scintilla, and so Scintilla it's kind of like a scaffolded editor, but it's more than that. It's got a whole tool set defined for actually being able to do visualizations, and so kind of itself, it's kind of this stock bare bones editor, but it has these 1,000 plus APIs where you can do lots of customizations. It's cross-platform, so as we were looking back, we had this legacy editor that was very dated, and so we were looking to change that. And so what I'm going to be showing you today, though, so I kind of showed last year at ESUG, or STIC, I think it was, what was happening when we got the new editor in. And so it was good, but all we really did was did the bindings for it, because Scintilla is written in C++ with a C binding. So we kind of got that in, but we didn't really take it out for a spin and show what it could do. So that's kind of what this whole release is about. And so the focus will be on code analytics and what we call interactive refactoring. So this is going to use visualizations to help you do refactoring in kind of a near context switchless way. So what does that mean? Well, so when you normally do refactorings, think of like renaming a variable. You're going to get a pop-up, and so now you're out of your code flow. So now you're looking at the pop-up, you're adjusting it, you're going to type something, you're going to press OK, and boom, it's going to apply the changes to the editor. Well, so what if there's a better way? What if there's a way where you can, as you see it, you can, if you want to rename a variable, you can just, be able to do a key where all of a sudden it'll highlight all the variable, its declaration and references, and it's doing it in real time with visualizations. It's showing you if there's conflicts because you're renaming it to an existing local or whatever the case may be. This kind of stuff. And so 90% of this talk is going to be a live demo showing that. So I'm just kind of showing what I'm going to be talking about. And the other kind of part is what we call the editor themes. So because there are so many visualizations, we wanted to provide a way that you can tweak those. And so we've got this editor theme builder, which is all point and click driven, and you can adjust themes, breakpoint, icons, just about anything. So I'm going to be showing that shortly. Just to get basically for this upcoming release, we did take advantage of some new APIs that allows up to 25 performance increase during really intense operations. So that means you're calling get character out of position 1,000,000 times or something, which we do because Scintilla plays a large role in how we actually analyze the code, because it actually stores the lexical state of the document. Every single token type we actually store in Scintilla, and so we use that along with a custom scanner parser that we built to use that for code analysis, and it's really, really flexible, because the problem with normal means like with a parse tree is it assumes you're working with well-formed code, and that's not always the case. And so then you got to get into pruning the tree and fixing it up, and that's kind of what we do with code completion. It's kind of difficult. So this is a much better mechanism that's more like a token scanner. And I like to give the example of if it were if a parse tree is like an XML DOM parser, then the way ours works is more like a SAX parser. It's an event-driven type of parser, and so it's much more flexible to issues that come up in code. Large memory reductions. Again, a lot of this is because we shoved in the editor, and that was a ton of work to do, and this was all about refining it. So with that, I'm going to now sit down and go through the live demo, and we'll start with the. Wish this would just get out of here. I guess I'll be forced to. Okay. So here's VA, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up this editor theme. So by doing this, this is going to show basically all the visualizations, more or less. There's actually some that are dynamically used during the refactoring sessions, but they adhere to the theme as you see here. So you can basically click on anything and tweak it. So for example, let's go ahead and tweak this line margin on the side here. So I'll click it, and you can see it's kind of pre-selected in this list here. And over here will be a custom, kind of a custom series of sliders and tweaks that you can make and they'll be very specific to the type of visualization you're working with. And so as I kind of slide this around, you can kind of see in the preview upper right, excuse me, that it's changing. I'll change the side there like that. We'll give it a slightly larger, actually that was the same, how about that? So you can change the size, you can change the font type, you can bold it, just all these kinds of stylizations. And once you decide, if something looks ridiculous, then you can just, go back to default just like that, you're good. And so some others that we have we're showing these new types of call tips that we created called actionless call tips. So these are call tips that allow you to interact with them. And so here's another example of, you can see there's a few more dials on here that you can work with. You can also click these and they'll come up with color dialogue, so you can kind of pre-select quickly and then kind of tweak from there. We do have kind of, the way you'd want to do this is you'd kind of want to pick one of our existing themes because you can save your own. And so what I'm going to show you is we've updated some of our kind of older themes. I'll show you two that are old running jokes. So here's colorful, for example. This is the default. This is an upgraded Dolphin Smalltalk theme. For anybody that use Dolphin, of course, we do more visualization, so I've had to make up, what I thought the colors would look like for some of these. But this is one of the jokes, the long-running jokes that we've had is the green screen. It's probably about time for it to go, but it's been there for so long, and I feel bad removing it. We got a couple of Pharaoh themes that got put in. So here's Pharaoh Blue and Tango. So you can see with things like arguments here, you can italicize, you can pick different, there's just so many different ones now. I mean, there's a token type for just about any token. And as I said, this is all used by the lexical scanner to make decisions about code analysis. So it doesn't require parse trees anymore to be able to know what it's looking at. And so there's another example. I'll just go through just a few more, like bracket highlighting. So here's bracket matching. And so for something like this, well, there's two different ways you can style it. You can use these kind of indicator underlays. You can also adjust, transparencies. And then there's the outline. I can kind of show you what the outline transparency is. So you can kind of see it changing there. You can change its, the way that it actually will look, have it draw over or under the text. You can also change it to just style the character instead, and don't do actual, don't do any sort of underlays. So again, just back to the default, and you're back to where you were. We'll go ahead and, so here's the other joke, the reverse video, which I'm just sure nobody uses. Actually, these were very helpful in debugging because I had to make sure that every customization, every styling I was using adhered to the theme, and it was really easy when you only have two to make sure those hard-coded ones I had put in place were gone. And then this is a simple one. Again, these are some that have just been there. We'd like to create some more. But now it's just really easy to update them yourselves because you just kind of pick a stock template and then just start clicking around. And on the item dialog there, you can see, it's just very simple. Just get going. So that's kind of the editor theme UI that we put in. And so all of this is coming together for a reason. It's not just because it's fun to make your editor look colorful. Another reason is that we're looking heavily at, we want users to have a really good editor for things like XML, or maybe if they're working with Seaside or something and they have inline JavaScript or whatever, CSS or whatever the case may be. We want to be able to offer syntax color highlighting, which Scintilla already gives us the capability for 80 plus languages. And so basically what we want to do is say, okay, well let's do that, but let's have a way where it can adhere to the theme. And so since we have these types for everything in Smalltalk, we'll just map like a JavaScript type to one of these types. And so then you can easily create, themes for across all languages. So now we're going to go, we'll look at the code analytics. And so I'm just going to open a browser here, and we're just going to kind of hang out here and look at some of the code analytics. So the code analytics runs real time in the background. And so there's kind of three aspects to code analytics. And so the first one is detection. And so so in order to get this right, this is about, you need something that runs in the background, but you need something that that you can't tell that it's running, which means that you need something that's very interruptible and yields frequently low priority, and the user should never be able to notice that it's running. And so that's, when you're running bunches of code analytics and rules, it can be difficult to do. So first part's detection. The next part we're going to discuss afterwards is once you detect, now you need to report it. So there's mechanisms we have for reporting to the user. Well, here's what got detected. And then the final thing is repair. And that's where our interactive refactoring will come in, as well as some of the others. So the first thing we'll do is, first, before I start there, I didn't mention code folding, which is now in. We do comment folding. And so this is kind of neat because there's actually a bunch of settings that you can use to say, well, I just want to fold the first header comment, which is typically some gigantic comment that could be a page long. And so now you can just easily have it auto-detect that and go ahead and pre-collapse it. And so where those things are at is we have a code assist configuration dialog. And so there's all these places where you can kind of tweak them. And so you see here, I want to see code fold in the browsers, debuggers, inspectors. I want to have a decoration when it does collapse so that I can see it's collapsed. So here, for example, it may do something like drawing a line under the fold, like so. And then you can also say, my auto-collapse policy, I want it to auto-collapse everything, every comment, or just the first comment in anything, a workspace, an inspector, or just the first method comment, which would be in a browser. So we also have, we'll do the code analysis first. So the first part to code analysis is, the first one I brought up was renaming a variable. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take this new elements here, and there's several ways to activate it, but let's go ahead and just do the easy one, which is a menu item. So all it needs to be is the caret there, the text caret just needs to be adjacent on whatever you wanted to refactor. So right-click here, we do refactoring. You see instant rename. So already you see that it's highlighted the declaration and the references. So now you just start typing. So I want it to be new. So it's keeping it updated. Now, part of this is conflict detection. So imagine if I said, okay, well, how about let's call it old element. So you see something's happened here. You see it's crossed it out, all instances. And you want that because this could be multiple pages long. And you don't hit it until the very bottom, but you don't, and you want to know that, oh, there's a problem somewhere else. So I got to scroll up or whatever the case may be. But so we cross through every instance. And then you see where the problem area is. You see it kind of underlined here. And you see it's got this call to describes where the issue is. So it knows, it's context sensitive, so it knows it's an argument, existing argument. You can imagine that there could be, if I said, ordered collection, that it would be able to detect with a visible class, any kind of, or an instance variable. Those can always be hard to spot because they could be up the chain, and you might type one and not know it's the name of an instance variable when it is, and find out later when you try to compile. So a lot of these are issues that you'll find out about, but it's nice, you're right there, let's solve it right there. Now when I press escape, this whole thing has been tracked as a single operation, so we get one undo to restore everything to the way that it was. And so we do have a hotkey for this as well, which is what I end up typically doing. We can do it for these block arguments there. And so pretty easy, that's just how it works. The next one is like a misspelled selector. So let's say that, I'm going to just add an S. So now we see a couple of things going on. We see a purple kind of squiggle, and I'll just kind of zoom in a little bit. We see a purple squiggle right here, message not implemented. And then you see kind of off to the side here, in a margin, a little thin sliver. And that's so when you vertically scan, you can find these things fairly easily, because these can be kind of subtle, which is what you want. You don't want all these markups screaming at you while you're trying to code. So now we see message not implemented, so that's the reporting aspect. But now what are we going to do about it? So this is the first part of an actionless call tip, where you see off to the left there's a little down arrow. And so you can either choose not to address this, or you can say, okay, well, what can you do? And so in this case, it pops open and says, well, correct spelling to, and then it offers you choices. And if there were multiple choices, you'd see the up-down arrows present there, which you could click on to make a selection. But here there's just one, so you double-click, and it's going to fix it up for you. So another one to talk about is kind of the same thing, and this is an ongoing project to get this really good, because this is probably the hardest part. As I did all of these code analyses, this was the most difficult piece, and that is type detection. So this is kind of like a rabbit hole. Just like the deeper you go into type inference, it's kind of like the law of diminishing returns. You do more and more work for less and less returns. So it can get really hard. But it turns out, thankfully, that it seems like the most common cases, like self, and then you misspelled, or you added a valid selector, like self as float, and then it's able to say, oh, well, an ordered collection doesn't understand that message. And that's pretty easy. So self, there's really no real work there to be done. It gets more interesting, though, when you start to do things like, well, now I've got this new collection, and the only thing that I really know about new collection, if you just kind of look localized here, is that it had an assignment sent to it. Then after that, it got sent the message elements. And then after that, it got sent the message last index. So now I wonder at this point, what does it think it is? Well, code completion thinks it's an ordered collection. It's figured it out. And so, let's do as float here. So their new collection, even though it's a local here, it was able to mash together all those pieces of information to basically figure out what this thing was. And the fact that, it may not be able to tell you exactly what it is. In fact, we can look here and say, well, here's based on the information I got, here's what I think it is. And it takes a very pessimistic view of the world because there's a lot of places where this could go bad. Proxy objects, all these kinds of things. And so it just takes what it actually knows. No problem. Local. For this phase, local. Yeah. Once we go out, the tendrils, it's just like the rabbit hole returns. I do want to do that, and I think there's ways to do that, not being super formal about it, but just taking a more informal stance at it. I think there's still a lot that could be done that would be helpful to the end user, which is what we're really after, not formal type theory and trying to be provably correct here. So I think there's still a lot that can be done. So we're looking, I do want to explore that. Yes. Yeah. I mean, well, I've coded with this for 8 months, and that's kind of how I did a lot of these features. I was my own tester, and I was. Yeah. Well, I mean, I noticed that most of these cases are self or simple ones like this, and it comes about because you're not directly like you type self and you're like, what's the name of that method, and you make a mistake. It's really because I found that it's when I do refactoring that these things show up. I start changing things around. I put this assignment over here, or I inline, I get rid of this local, and I now make it this single, message send. And all of a sudden, these things start popping up. And that's really where this utility comes in. It's to kind of help save you when you're doing refactoring. So let's look at some variable ones, which are kind of cool. How about an unused variable? So I'll be very inventive here. Okay, so we see this happens all the time, right? Again, refactoring. You simplified things, but you forgot to remove the declarations. And these things, like now, it's standing out at you, but it doesn't usually when you leave them there. And you got to switch context, go use another tool like smallint, get flooded with tons of information, which hopefully you don't filter out because you're running it for the 10th time. This is all, this is the kind of stuff where it's right there for you to see as it happens, and that's what we're really after. So I noticed, okay, well, there's the detection, there's the report. Obviously, you can probably guess what we're going to be doing about it. But the one tweak is that I noticed that whenever I had one, I typically had 2 or more. And that's because the way I refactor is, I guess I'm doing multiple refactorings at a time, and I end up needing to remove a few of them. So I have, you can also do remove all unused locals, and that'll just take care of everything in one step. Oh, in here? Yeah, I'm just trying to think, did I put the configuration? Actually, the configuration option may be there in the theme for warnings. I don't know if it's specific to this, but that's a good idea. So strikeouts might be a better, because right now it's that yellow gold means warning, and so there's kind of fatal errors, warnings, and info, and I'll show you those in a moment. So let's go ahead and, so that's a good one. So the different visualization options that we can look at. So I'll get rid of that. So it's pretty smart about, okay, well, here's an unused section, and it's going to be the last one left. So you would hope that it would be smart enough to get rid of the temp bars additionally, which it does. Another one is, have you ever done where, you have a temp, and then, temp equals 3. And let's say, you went through some refactorings, and then one day you come back to your code, and you realize, oh, I just left it in there, but I never ended up doing anything with it. So it's just sort of wasted computation, basically. So this is the local written but never read. And it's a little complicated at the moment to actually fix that, so it's manual at the moment. You just go through and do that. Another one that you'll see, and there is an anti-pattern that actually could use this successfully, but I don't really like it all that much. This is the local read before written. So notice that I'm going to send this a message. Okay? But the problem is, now, the strongly typed language, it's something. It's nil. But here, it's 9 times out of 10, in fact, more than 9 times out of 10, this is probably a mistake. There are cases I've seen in code, I don't use this pattern, where in an inner loop, maybe the initialization of it is expensive, and so you'll get checks, is nil, go through another loop, is nil, go through another loop, and maybe at some point later it actually initialized it. It's just my feeling. I don't really like that one. It's kind of tricky to my eyes, but I'm sure it's valid in some cases. So that's the only place where I kind of see a false positive sometimes. So those are kind of the ones that are helping you with the variables. So now we'll come to, this is kind of my favorite one. Let's say that you want to create a new variable, and now you basically go in here and it says, okay, well, it's undefined. Well, and so you can imagine, well, let's declare it. And so you see here that it's put it in the innermost scope, but then you see these other areas all the way up where you can actually stick it. So I can do up arrow, left, 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 right, right, right. I can also just hover with the mouse, and it kind of snaps into place. So, and then once you're happy, then it's there. And again, all of this gets tracked as one undo. So you're back to where you started with one undo. And again, so this has got conflict detection as well. So we'll say, let's just get back to here, and we got, let's say I was right here, and I said element. So you see there's a problem, strike through, shows you where the problem is. You've already got this block arg named element. So you see here, it's able to figure out where it is and report that to you. But I still wanted to allow the user to accept this. And the reason is because this may be part of an aggregate refactoring that you're doing. You're really meant to you're going to rename this next, and I don't want to dictate workflow. So you can still accept it. And you get all the visualization you need to know that there's going to be an issue coming up. Another one we have is Prereq. So this is kind of like the mod talk, in the spirit of the mod talk stuff, where so in Envy, we've got this concept that, for a given application which your classes live in, let's say like this thing, it's got prereqs. And you can think of them as includes, requires, but it's on a kind of a larger horse crane scale. So this has a prereq of swapper. Swapper has a prereq of this thing, and then we can go all the way back up till we get to kernel. Kernel is kind of the core guy. But it's being small talk. You can put message selectors in there. You can put so I'll go here. CLDT is a part of kernel. So I'm going to go ahead and code completion knows not by default to offer me things that aren't visible, but I can do a special code key and have it show me everything. So I'll put in ABT about. And so this ABT about is a class that lives probably 8 layers up. So it has no business being in CLDT here. And so you can see that it's able to identify that this class is not visible in this application. And so that basically is saying there's a couple of things. The reason I like it is it allows me to have good control over my code, to know what's calling what, where are the dependencies. I'm able to clearly delineate my layers, or the vertical slices, or whatever you want to, however you organize it. I'm able to describe it to others. It's not just this mismatch of code. And this also helps the packager. So this is the packager is the guy that's going to strip down the image. And that's mainly what it was for, was so that it would have this dependency chain that it could analyze and know how to strip this stuff out. So it works not just for classes, but also for methods as well. So if I went to, let's see, new index here, and I'll do some ABT prefixed TS here. So all this gets updated in real time. And again, a lot of this detection stuff that's going on in the background is kind of the larger piece, but it's not a visible piece, so you guys aren't seeing it. But it's everything's keeping updated. These dependency chains to stay updated every time you modify code is a big piece. But you won't notice it, and that's the nice part, is that you won't see, as you type, you won't see stuttering or anything like that. It's very friendly. I think I may be out of time, but does anybody know for sure? Because I am done. If we have questions. Yes. Mm. Thanks. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that was kind of my original motivation, was because I use Eclipse and IntelliJ and NetBeans, and I liked those tools, and I thought there's no reason we can't have that, and it's useful, and it should be there. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. No, I'm still trying to think about a mechanism how to track that and where to store it. And I do one. Yeah. Yeah, so I should mention that for any one of these rules, you can, so I will need to show you one more quickly. You can disable the rules. So that's not a instance-specific thing, unfortunately, but that is what I'm trying to push it into. And so just the last one I'll show you, and this is quick. This will be the only one where it's kind of informational, like you don't need to do it, but it's just sort of recommending you should, and in most cases, you just should. Let's say temp here. I'll put it up here. Notice that there's this gray squiggly, and it says, hey, you can push this down. It's not really error, but it's you should probably localize it. So then it's got the interactive refactoring to push it down to its recommended location. And I did make this consistent. So all these mechanics for snapping it into place with the mouse or going up, down, and reshuffling it, it works the same across all those refactorings. All the ones where you're moving temps around, basically. Yeah, you can stay on the keyboard if you like, or if you can snap into place with the. So it does work with. These are kind of interesting ones where you have these are massive methods because they're generated by tools. So here's one where and so you can see the tools are creating slop. So I'll create one here, And so you can see, I'm just snapping it into place, and it's all shuffling around there. Or I can use the, yeah. So if you want to hear more about this, plus some of the other stuff that we're doing in VA, because there is more to tell, please come Friday at 10:30 a.m. See John O'Keefe talk about. So we got lots of other updates. So this will be in the next, our upcoming release, which he'll talk about. Thank you.